we don't follow other successful models. We have created our own unsuccessful model. So, for example, Pakistan's insistence that the problem of Kashmir needs to be resolved first before we can have any forward movement is not a successful model anywhere else in the world. Similarly, India's insistence that they should be, or not, it's not officially the Indian insistence, but the insistence of some Indians that there should be no discussion on Kashmir at all, is also not a successful model. Many nations have been able to deal with outstanding problems by setting them aside in terms of solution, recognizing them as a problem, but saying, let us work with the things that we do not, that we are able to resolve, rather than spending and squandering all our energy on issues we can't resolve right now. Why must we bang our heads against each other and say no? One says this is not an issue at all, and the other says this is the only issue. Go past that, find creative solutions. And in my book, with tremendous detail, I point out how efforts have been made in that direction, but it's always ended up by with someone insisting that there is only one way out. And very frankly, I think that the stability of our region and the potential for peace between our two countries depends on realism on both sides. Whoever is the Prime Minister of India, and who has the confidence of the people of India, whoever is the Prime Minister of Pakistan, can bring peace if the circumstances are right and the foundations of the agreement that they reach is real, and neither side intends to violate it. We saw that in 1999, Mr. Vajpayee's bus yatra and the peace process that started with it was disrupted by Kargil. So whoever, General Pervez Musharraf in particular, who was responsible for initiating the hostilities in Kargil, but that undermined the process. When Mr. President Asif Zardari took the huge initiative immediately after being elected president of talking about all subjects, including Pakistan's nuclear posture with the Indians, we saw that Mumbai happened, and that totally disrupted any potential for negotiations. So any such thing can happen, whether it is from state actors or non-state actors. But the fact of the matter is that oversimplifications such as, the man in saffron talking to the man in green will solve the problems is not the way forward. I personally think that while terrorism has been around in different shapes and forms throughout history, it has never been effective in bringing about any positive results. And when terrorism has been adopted as a state policy of action or a state policy of inaction, there can be two ways. One is we actively support terrorists. The other is, if there are terrorists, we will not actively discourage them from acting. Both have the same consequence, which is they create conflict. They do not pave the way for negotiations or peace processes. In the end, even where people say an issue was highlighted as a result of terrorism, say for example in South Africa, it's after the end of terrorism that the solution came about. Terrorism can only disrupt people's lives, and if it is against a stronger state, then it will only result in unnecessary loss of lives. But anybody who thinks that by flying planes into a couple of American buildings they'll bring down America, they are sadly mistaken. And similarly, anybody who thinks that by attacking some innocent people in Mumbai they can bring about change in the subcontinent, they are mistaken. It's time for the terrorist business to be totally shut down. The critical mass in Pakistan is for components of the liberal narrative, but not for the whole narrative. And I think it'll come together only if some of us who have chosen to save our lives by sitting outside, use the opportunity of being outside to actually help lay the foundations of the new narrative. In Pakistan, you're a class 3 student when you are already being told that Pakistan came into being not in 1947 but in 712 AD, when the first Muslim conqueror came to the subcontinent. The cult of the warrior is being instilled in you from an early age. How are you going to respect the scholar or the politician if you are constantly told that the warrior is an integral part of Islam and Islamic history? Jihadist ideas. If people are not told the value of economics, if people are always told that, we are a great nation because we are a nuclear power, then they will not understand that yes, you can have nuclear weapons like North Korea does, but you may not necessarily have the stature that South Korea has without nuclear weapons. So unless people have the ideas available to them, they can't make the choices between the ideas. I think the critical mass is gathering, and it will come about. It may not come about in 2 years or 5, but the elements are already there. There are people who do not want Pakistan to be a jihadist controlled, jihadist infested, or jihadist influenced extremist state. Firstly, I don't think it would be a good idea for India to get militarily involved in Afghanistan,
no, but
which India seems to recognize. But it is for Afghans to decide who does business with them and who they do business with. I think it's an erroneous concept in Pakistan that Pakistan must have a say in who governs Afghanistan. The best way for Pakistan to have a friendly government in Kabul is to befriend the government in Kabul. We need to work with whoever there is. And secondly, this whole notion that Pakistan needs to have some militia allied to it that will govern in Afghanistan is an outgrowth of the war against the Soviets, during which Pakistan invested heavily. My book, if you read it, I actually explain that the popular view that America wanted to fight the Soviet Union and used Pakistan is actually incorrect. Pakistan had a plan to have a bridgehead in Afghanistan, and they invited the Americans to make it the Soviet Vietnam, and the Americans bought into that offer. But now this adventure has gone on for several decades, and all it has done is it has disrupted Pakistan. So it's in Pakistan's interest to work on an understanding with all of Afghanistan's neighbors, and say, let us all not interfere and let the Afghans work out their own internal politics.